as a younger man is this. It's from, I think, Ian John. And he says, when a man turns 35, and I think he's talking about all genders, but when a man turns 35, he realizes that his life isn't working. And
Right.
I always thought that was kind of vaguely amusing before I hit 35. And then I hit 35 and I'm like, I'm starting to understand what this is all about. And there's something about somewhere in that zone between 35 and 55 where the label midlife gets slapped on a sticker on your forehead, and suddenly you're asking yourself bigger questions. You're going, what mountain am I climbing? What's the first mountain? What's the second mountain? Who am I? Who am I trying to be?
So many mountains.
So many mountains, exactly. And, it's always great to meet somebody else who is not just traveling that journey, but is also writing and teaching about that journey. So, Peter, you've got a book and we're going to talk about it. But how did you first know that you were in midlife?
How did I know? I think in midlife, well, the first time I knew about it, I was actually listening to a person who introduces midlife to many people, and that's Richard Rohr. I was listening to his book, Falling Up. My wife and I go to Cannon Beach every between Christmas and New Year's, and we were listening to his book, and he was talking about life in two halves, which was a relatively new concept for me. So and I hit that number when I knew, like, I'm definitely in the middle. Like this is definitely the middle of my life, and you just know that you just start to think about things a little bit differently. Things start to matter differently. Things start to show up in your brain a little bit differently. Yeah.
So when you hit that moment and you're like, oh, wait, this isn't just an interesting theory. This is a conversation about me and my life.
Right.
What did you start noticing needed to shift, either internally or externally?
Yeah, I think the things that shift, so much of midlife is connected to our vantage point or the viewpoint or the mindset that we have about midlife. And I think, things start to show up in your life that are more challenging, that are a little bit, require you to take a pause and step back and have a look at it and respond, respond in a way that maybe you haven't previously. So the thing that showed up for me is that all of a sudden you're faced with something, and who am I when faced with this? That's the question. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting premise. I'm like, things just get messier in midlife. There's some people who are listening to this who are like, oh, I get exactly what you're talking about. But for those lucky people who are yet to arrive in this messy middle, what does shift? I mean, what moves from certain to less certain, from clear to ambiguous? What's the sort of, where do things get a bit, where does the sand shift?
What's the mess? Where's the mess?
Oh, yeah.
I think the things that begin to shift is you've spent your time, the first half of your life, you spent a number of years building, working, moving, creating an identity and stepping towards it. And the midlife call is really like, who am I? So it's about stepping into that identity and having all that beautiful experience that you have, leading that road that you've traveled to get you to where you are, and this wonderful path ahead, and taking a look at it from the perspective of, how do I want to travel this path? Who do I want to travel this path with? Who am I going to be as I travel this path?
I mean, your new book is called Shift, and
it is.
It's interesting. I keep using that word shift. So either you've subliminally planted it in my brain, or it's just a really good title. Probably the latter, or maybe both. But I mean, most people just go through midlife by going through midlife. You've decided to write a book about it. What calls you to be a kind of a guide in this time?
I think that, midlife has a bit of a bad rap. Our friend Chip Connolly has made it his life work to rebrand midlife. Yeah. When I take a look at midlife, it's really, it's not a cliff. It's a clearing. All of a sudden, you're sitting at a space in your life where things, in theory, there should be some space and time to allow things to become clearer for you. So. when I think about, what I want this book to be or why I've chosen to step into this space, I really do believe that your mindset determines your midlife,
Right.
and your midlife experience. You've written. You talked about your in the coaching habit. You talk about your haiku. If this book was a haiku, and I've always loved that, and I've said that haiku to many people over the time, Michael. But if this book was a haiku, it would be like your mindset determines your midlife experience. So get on it. Essentially, like we either take a look at midlife, as our good friend Arthur Brooks says, as a time of subtraction, where we're losing things and focusing there, or we focus on what we actually gain. So if people can make the step or move towards embracing some of the beautiful things that emerge in midlife, then their experience is going to be a lot more beautiful itself.
Yeah. In fact, you talk about mindset, but you got 7 mindsets in the book. But if you had to pick an umbrella way of expressing that, what's the singular mindset that is most essential to a more heartfelt embracing of midlife?
If I was just going to pick one, it would be in and around paradox and the concept of two things existing simultaneously. Something can be beautiful and it can be difficult at the same time. Something can be, joyful and mournful simultaneously. You think of the losses that you have. You have all that you had to gain from having that person in your life, and then you have the concept of them no longer being there. But those two things can exist simultaneously. So that was the subject of my master's thesis. I was trying to demonstrate that paradox was the key differentiator, and ability to embrace paradox was the key differentiator. Yeah.
So how do you, how would you coach somebody to increase their capacity for paradox? Because you're asking them to increase their paradox for ambiguity and non-simplistic answers, and holding two competing ideas in your brain at the same time, as F. Scott Fitzgerald once said. And for lots of people, that's all of that's hard. So is it just kind of the luck of the wiring, or is there an actual way you can increase that capacity?
Yeah, I think, it starts with acknowledging that the possibility that that there is an opportunity to take a look at things from different angles and different lenses, and it comes easier for some people than for others. But it generally leads towards a really rich, meaningful conversation when you're exploring, the two sides of a coin with someone and challenging them to take a look at things from a different angle, or So I find it's when someone's really stuck in the hardness of something, or a loss. It's nothing trite, but I think eventually getting to a point where it's, pointing out the beauty in that loss, that can be a good, meaty, meaningful, zesty conversation. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Earlier on, you're talking about Arthur Brooks, and you're talking about, it's not about what you're losing, it's also about what you're gaining. But I feel like part of what a rich midlife is about is not loss, but more about letting go of some things. So I'm wondering, to be able to step forward and start embracing some of the mindsets that you're talking about and kind of step into that, what do you have to put down? What do you have to unlearn?
Yeah, one of the big shifts that I speak about is the shift towards curiosity, the shift to curiosity, which is essentially releasing the shackles of certainty. So the concept, one of the things that you have to lay down is that maybe some of this certainty that I've held so close and has informed so much of what I do isn't serving this situation, isn't serving me, isn't serving my midlife experience. So the concept of letting something go is central concept into this in my book, and the funny thing about midlife is that some things we learn to let go of very, very, it just comes naturally. I don't know if you've seen anything in and around social media on the We Do Not Care Club, but the We Do Not
I
Care,
have seen a little bit of that. Yeah, yeah.
the We Do Not Care Club. So it's they list off their meeting minutes, and they're just listing all of the things that they're not that they don't care about anymore. And some of that just happens naturally in
Yeah.
midlife, and some of it is real work.
It's such a dance, the whole I don't care club. It can be, it can be an act of complete liberation. Like it can be a real way of kind of getting out of beyond things. But it can also be a kind of, well, screw you. I'm closing my life down. I'm kind of
Right.
like being more certain about things and just being a little hard-hearted about things.
Yeah. I find it sometimes like it's just more in the things that used to be really important to me. They're holding less. I'm letting go and letting them have less, informing me less.
So how do you figure out what is emerging as is what is important to you these days? I think one of the challenges that people face in this time is in some ways going, what's shifting in terms of what I care about? And sometimes that just becomes obvious, like your kids move out, so that makes it harder for you to care about your kids because they're not leaving their clothes around your house, or you finish a kind of career thing and you move on to a different type of work, and they're like, okay, so I can't care about climbing the greased monkey pole of a career. But I'm just curious to know how you help people attune to what might be different in this different phase of life.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've tried to structure the book in a way with a lot of journal prompts, a lot of questions that really help provoke thought and inquiry, self-inquiry in and around the things that matter. And a lot of times, we do different exercises with people where it's like, just have a look through your photo, your photo album, because like we tend to take pictures of the things that are important to us. And then when you see something that really kind of hits you, then make a note of that. So the concept is there's lots of clues in our lives, in the life that we've lived to that point, and into where our headspace goes that give us clues on what's important to us. And it's just a matter of investing time, doing things like working with your journal. I had fun working on on the what matters aspect of things, and I've worked through that on a couple of different occasions with different things. And it's just the holding myself to the questions, and then holding others to them as well.
So I mean, one of the things that I'm keen on, so this is a rhetorical question, but I'm going to pretend it's not.
Okay.
Is like, can you do this alone, or do you need to have other people with you as you journey into midlife? And I'm actually asking, who do you need to get around you to make this journey easier? Because my take on it is, if you're doing it by yourself, you've made a mistake somewhere down the line. So how do you build your crew, your gang? Who do you look for to support you in this?
Yeah, one of the shifts is called shift into connection, and the concept of like life was never really meant to be done alone. So the concept of surrounding yourself with, people who who share similar interests, maybe share different interests, but who engage in conversation with you about the things that are going to both challenge and inspire you. So I've done a little section in the book on how to get the most out of this book, and one of them is to do it as a as a book club, as a study, and nice. We have coaching circles that we've developed around the book as well for conversation. So I think the concept of we're getting ready to go on a Camino trek with a group of people, and it's people from all over the world, and we're going to meet in Portugal, and we're going to walk the Camino together. But that, and I've had other experiences. I participated in another event with Rob Bell down in the desert of Ojai, where just 12 strangers got together, and he just asked us questions. So it's like that common thing of like a community of people who are looking for for their midlife to be something that they write, and sharing conversation with those people.
Do you have any guidance on how people can strengthen that circle? Because, it's like COVID did a number on lots of us in terms of kind of breaking apart some comforting communities, and we all read the statistics about how there's a rise in isolation and loneliness, and particularly for men, there's statistics for men who are our age who are like 25% of men have not a single close friend. A lot of men, their only close friend is their partner. It's a tough nut to crack. So I don't expect you to have this magical, easy phrase, but what have you learned about what it takes to build and maintain a community around you?
It's funny that you should mention that, because I do think it is tougher for men. Like my wife is at a happy hour probably twice a week with her.
Right.
Her girlfriends are all really great at initiating and pulling together. If I'm making plans with a friend, it's because I've made a decision that I'm going to make plans, and so it requires a level of intentionality and asking myself the questions, who do I want to spend time with, how do I want to spend time with them. And then I've traditionally personally been more of a responder, which I think a lot of men are. Like, we show up where sometimes where we're invited to. So really kind of challenging myself to be more of an initiator on that front, because every time somebody gets together, somebody initiated it, and it doesn't always have to be the other person. That's what I'm saying to myself.
You got 7 mindsets. We're not going to talk about each one of them because we want people to be enticed and curious and to buy the book. Which mindset took you by surprise when it showed up?
The one that was hardest for me was the one about befriending your body. The concept. I've loved work. I've worked really hard. In fact, that's probably too much of my pre-midlife story. So the concept of taking care of myself, investing in things like exercise was always all in or it was nothing. So the concept of my body is my friend. It's been with me through my whole life, and now it's time for me to start befriending it back and taking care of it in ways that it needs to be taken care of. So just the regularity around that mindset shift was the hardest one for me to write about, but it was helpful.
So how do you? The challenge with mindsets is like they all look great on paper, but often there's some kind of quite deep wiring that needs to be unwired before something can be rewired. Either about that befriending your body or one of the other mindsets. I'm curious to know what required the most significant stripping back and rebuilding, and how did you go about doing that? Because it's just not enough to kind of go, he's right, I should befriend my body. That's not going to work. So how do you make some of these more significant, profound, kind of in bone level changes?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've and actually toyed with this being the title of the book was the concept of a second half advantage, in that, and I think Chip Connolly again refers to being at the over the hill isn't necessarily all a bad thing, because you have this rich history that you can look back on, or this path that you've traveled, or all of this previous experience that you can examine and dissect a little bit to say, hey, why wasn't I befriending my body there? What was interfering with that, and what does befriending my body have to look like for the future? So I think we sit at this unique spot where we can look backwards and we can look forwards. We have something to draw from that has informed where we sit within that particular mindset shift, and we can then now say, where do I need to challenge myself? Where do I need to push myself? Where do I need to shift here to make it happen? So yeah, and we each have our own stories on why we do or do not take care of our bodies in the way that they need to be.
And for people wondering, Chip Connolly is the founder of the Modern Elder Academy, MEA as it's sometimes called, and he's certainly on a quest to make eldership something that's not about being antiquated and old, but actually playing a different type of role. What is the connection in your mind between eldership and managing this kind of midlife moment?
Yeah, I think the concept of elder and accumulated wisdom, and I think it focuses on that desire that most of us have to make a contribution. I did a lot of work in recruitment and HR, and when people were contributing in their workplace, then they were more engaged than if they were just feeling like they were ticking boxes, and that applies to life as well.
Yeah.
So, like as an elder, as somebody who has accumulated wisdom, the opportunity to share that or interact either with myself or with others and put that wisdom to work is it's fulfilling, and it scratches itches that we all have to mean something to someone. Yeah.
One of the I think challenges around this time, if you buy into this idea of Arthur Brooks and climbing the second mountain, for those of you who don't know that metaphor, first mountain career, kind of getting the accolades, getting the societal status, and maybe some money, and fancy car and a title, and all of the stuff that we're told is what it takes to be successful. And then the second mountain is when you go, this is more about contribution. This is about the second half. This is about showing up in a different way. But one of the things that happens is you either stop chasing the prizes and the trophies, or you just stop being eligible, or they just stop giving them to you. I'm wondering how you deal with moving away from being so much in the spotlight, because the very nature of excuse me, the very nature of adopting this more teacherly place is you put your student into the spotlight. How do you navigate this kind of shifting in status, in some ways a loss of status?
Yeah, it's and I've read, it's a David Brooks book.
Oh, sorry.
All good. But I've read that, and I think there's a reference to trophies in there. And I had just moved my mom out of her home, and I had a box of trophies there, and I took a lot of pleasure looking at that, going through that, remembering medals for this and trophies for that, and that has been a theme of, definitely a theme of my first half. When you have an achievement orientation, that's a strong driver. And then all of a sudden, you're sitting with something, and that desire to achieve something or to win something has less importance, and it's moved more to, hey, I would love to, I want to make a contribution to my world, to the people, to the people in it, and it's just becomes, trophies start to lose luster. Although I haven't thrown that box of trophies out yet. But
I mean, I have a friend my age, so I'm late 50s now, and he's not going quiet into the good night, if that's the phrase. He's like, no, I'm still trying to hustle, I'm still trying to build, I'm still trying to put out alpha male CEO kind of vibes. And it feels a little brittle to me. And maybe that's just me projecting, because I'm like, I've given up on some of that stuff. Do you have any guidance on how I help my friend put some of that stuff aside? I mean, one of the things that stops you moving into midlife is holding on or trying to nudge too much into the previous mode. It's like an old dude showing up at a disco. Everyone's like, look, I know you like to dance, but you shouldn't, this is not the club for you anymore. You need to move on and find a different place to dance.
Right. Yeah, well, and ultimately you and I know very well that it has to be a decision that your friend moves towards. But like to help get him there, I think one of the shifts is about shifting into alignment. And alignment with what really matters to you. So I think probing, challenging questions on even when there's he's in hot pursuit of something that would you might appear like it's a distraction or whatnot, just having him spend some time either with you or on his own, asking himself some questions on that front. And I think the alignment ultimately, another friend of mine wrote, her name's Claire, wrote a book called, Achiever Fever, and it's a beautiful book, and she's actually speaking at my book launch. So, but within that, it's like this concept of just conquest after conquest.
Yeah.
It loses its luster, and it actually it can be a big detractor for us in satisfaction with life, because those things just don't start to not mean anything anymore.
So, what does success mean for you now, as a man about to launch a book, as a man in midlife, as a man teaching around midlife? How do you measure success?
I think, as we started talking about grief at the beginning of this, like I've lost almost my whole entire family over the last 4 years, and so then you know that success, to think about success in any other way out of having a meaningful life and connecting with those who mean something to you is going to move you further away from success. So right. I think, because I have an orientation that wants to move things forward and keep things, success for me with this chapter of my work life would be in helping reframe and reshape people's viewpoint on midlife, and see it as a time of possibility, as an opportunity to design a future rather than just drift through a future. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a final question, but before I do that, tell us the full title of the book, and also where people can find it.
Yeah. The book is called Shift, 7 Mindsets for an Inspired Midlife.
Yeah.
And it's going to be available on any place that you would find books. I'm sure when we post this, we'll include a link to where it can be purchased. It's going to be through Amazon. I worked with the same publishing company you did, Page Two.
Great Vancouver.
And you know why I did?
I don't know, actually.
Because you've spoken so positively of them over the years. I've heard you say it a number of different times. So Page Two, it's going to be available on Amazon.
Perfect.
And it's coming out in October, and the launch is on November 5th.
That's great. And do you have a website for the book?
shiftintomidlife.com.
Perfect. Shiftintomidlife.com.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for asking the question.
Yeah, of course. So a final question. What needs to be said that hasn't yet been said in terms of what people need to know about what it means to navigate midlife with grace and glory?
I think we've said a lot. If something that needs to be said is that midlife is full of possibility. And it's there's likely going to be pain and challenging things. Our bodies are going to start to creak, and there will be challenges that will present themselves along the way. And ultimately, one of the shifts that I mentioned in the book is the shift to responsibility, which connected to the piece that in any given moment, I can take that pause, I can take a beat, I can take a knee, I can, pay attention to what's actually happening to me, and then I can choose a response that is going to take me closer to the person that I want to be.
Peter, thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Really appreciate you investing the time. You didn't have to, and you did. Thank you so much.
Of course.